people are going to make it nonetheless.
Let's zoom out for a second then. The number one thing it will take for the Eagles to win this Super Bowl, and the number one thing it will take for Kansas City to win this Super Bowl. Around the horn, George Dano.
Tony, I think that with the Eagles, Jalen Hurts, the biggest difference between him last season and this season is his ability to push the ball down the field. He had more connections down the field, 20 yards or more in the air this season than he did last season by a long shot. So A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, to me, that's a big key. And fourth downs, Tony, for the Eagles, because they converted 25 of those. That's the most in 45 years during the regular season. For the Chiefs, it's simple. Protect Patrick Mahomes. Make sure he isn't running around like Harry alluded to in that Super Bowl with the Bucs. And they can run the ball to kind of offset some of the pressure with Patrick Mahomes.
Frank Isola.
Yeah, I think for the Chiefs, it's definitely protecting Patrick Mahomes. You go back to that first game against Jacksonville. When he got hurt, he came back in the game. Jacksonville never put a rush on him. Cincinnati did a little bit better. But if they can protect him, it's going to be very difficult for Philadelphia to win, in my opinion. He'll just pick you apart. For the Eagles, I think they just control the ball. Keep the ball on the ground. Run it. Keep Mahomes off the field as much as you can. Try to eat up as much clock as possible. I think that'll be their best chance of winning, especially with that defense that they have.
Harry Lyles Jr.
Well, for me, the Eagles, one, they have to make Patrick Mahomes look human. He is the best player in football without question, and I think that they have one big advantage in terms of making him look human, which is, one, their defensive line, which is actually good at rushing the passer. We saw the Bengals getting to him with just 3. And, of course, the ankle, the most famous or infamous ankle, depending on which way you want to look at it, that we've ever talked about in NFL history because of this game. If they can get to him and get hits on that ankle and progressively make that worse possibly during the game, I think that's a big factor. For the Chiefs, you have to defend well. Miles Sanders had almost 1,300 rushing yards this season, 11 touchdowns. He is a player that is going to be big in this game. One, just because if you're able to run the football, that's one thing you have to do to win football games in the postseason and obviously defend. But also, you have 2 incredible receivers in Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown that you cannot get cooked by on a regular basis in this game because they are going to get theirs. It just can't be on a regular basis.
Courtney Cronin.
Hate to sound cliche here, but this game's going to be won up front and by the Eagles' defense. They can win with 4. Hassan Reddick, Javon Hargrave, Brandon Graham, all of those guys have more than 10 sacks this season. This team in 19 games has 78 sacks. So they want to make this like the last time we saw Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl where he had that bum toe against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and couldn't move around that well. You want to get to him. You want to knock him out early the way that they did against the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game. And then for the Kansas City Chiefs, I know this sounds weird, but they've got to find offense outside of Travis Kelce. Who else is going to show up for Patrick Mahomes? Because you go back to that divisional playoff game against Jacksonville. It was Travis Kelce for 14 catches, 2 touchdowns, 98 yards, and it was no one else. Of course, injuries affected the receiving core in the AFC Championship game, but I need Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I need Isaiah Pacheco, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kadarius Toney, all of the other receivers not named Travis Kelce to step up and give Patrick Mahomes an option to keep that offense off to a hot start.
Okay. Continuing to drill down on here for a second, I sense the way some of you are leaning here, but when it comes to number 1 offense, Kansas City, versus the number 1 defense, at least in some measures, is how Philly ended this season. Would you rather have the defense or the offense in one game, in one Super Bowl? Frank Isola?
I'd still rather have Kansas City's offense because of Patrick Mahomes. That's why I think for Kansas City's defense, and their defense has played very well. Everyone talks about Philly's defense. Kansas City is good, and when you look at a guy like Jalen Hurts, a lot of pressure is going to be on him because, you know, we get into this discussion all the time. Is he good enough to win a Super Bowl? Clearly Jalen Hurts is because he's in the game, but he hasn't had to be great in those first 2 games. Maybe that will be the case on Sunday, but he hasn't been really able to throw the ball down the field a lot since that the shoulder injury. He's a leader. He's a tough guy, absolutely. I'm interested to see how he's going to play if he's playing from behind. We don't know.
Harry Lyles Jr.?
Yeah, for me, it's the Chiefs' offense just because, again, Patrick Mahomes, and I know we keep talking about this ankle. I'll take him on a bad ankle over any quarterback in the NFL. And because of that, you don't have to play as elite defense as you have to in any other
You avoided
case.
one bad word. You walked into
I
another.
didn't avoid the other ones. Just take it.
Okay, well, so I'm sensing everybody's got Mahomes over Hurts head-to-head. They don't play head-to-head, though. I mean, Hurts is up against KC's defense, and Mahomes is up against Philly's defense. Courtney?
No, that's the reason I have Jalen Hurts in this matchup. They are not the NFL's #1 rushing offense without the contributions from Jalen Hurts. And you're going up against a Kansas City defense that's given up the 3rd most rushing yards to quarterbacks this season. But we always talk about Jalen Hurts and his legs. Let's not forget that he has the best passer rating of any quarterback in the postseason on throws of 25 yards or more downfield. And Kansas City has had a lot of trouble defending those sorts of passes. So if he gets out of the pocket, he can beat you that way. And he can also beat you with his arm because he's got a lot of receivers to throw to.
I think you're tipping your hand a little bit on your pick. Sedano, how about you?
Just a little bit.
Tony, to me, it is Patrick Mahomes for all the reasons that the guys alluded to earlier. I mean, he's basically Dan Marino and Steve Young had a baby, and that's what Patrick Mahomes is. But in regards to the defenses and putting pressure on the quarterbacks, look, Hassan Reddick has been fantastic. He's in top 2 in pass rush rate and sack rate percentage. But let's not forget that Frank Clark also has been fantastic for the Chiefs in the postseason. If he gets a sack in this one, he becomes the #2 guy, tying with Bruce Smith as far as postseason sacks. And then he could be only one of 3 guys then, with Willie McGinnis being one of them, that he could have a sack in 3 different Super Bowls. So Frank Clark has come up huge in these moments. Charles Haley is the other guy that I was thinking of, has come up huge in these moments, particularly in the postseason for the Chiefs. So Jalen Hurts needs to be careful because Frank Clark steps up big in these
All right,
moments.
real quick, looking for an X factor, 1 sentence or fewer. Frank Isola, X factor going into this game, who can make things a little bit wild.
If you're a quarterback, it's like worrying about where Micah Parsons is. If you're facing the Eagles, you better worry about where Hassan Reddick is. Here's a guy that knocked out Brock Purdy in the last
Harry
game.
Lyles Jr.?
I'm worried about him.
Miles Sanders, when he rushes for 70 yards or more, the Eagles are 9-0.
Courtney Cronin.
C.J. Gardner-Johnson, if he doesn't beat you with his trash talk, he can beat you by picking you off.
George Sedano.
Isaiah Pacheco, because he could take the pressure off of Patrick Mahomes with that run
And
game.
now we have arrived at the moment. Let's go to the big board for the Who You Got. 3 for Kansas City. And yes, Courtney, I sensed you were going Philadelphia. And look at that prop bet. You got A.J. Brown over receiving yards, Courtney?
I do, and I know that he only has 50 receiving yards in the postseason, but the Chiefs' defense has really struggled to contain number 1 wide receivers, and they've given up the 5th most yards after the catch. So
And
my
George, you're on
confidence in
that
A.J.
prop
Brown
as
hitting
well,
it.
A.J. Brown. And Harry, you like KC
Yep.
field goal. Frank, what are you doing? You're doing the anthem? That was the most exciting thing for you? Stapleton's anthem?
I want to know if I have money before the game even starts. That's why it's the anthem for me.
There you go.
All right.
Frankie Ice.
I'm taking a prop bet that people will have their cameras and their phones in front of their faces instead of watching the game in the background. And the refs will have one moment that makes you think, what happened here? Buy or sell on the other side.
Welcome back to Around the Horn, coming to you from the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17.
NFL honors last night came with Hall of Fame announcements. And I know it's a thing now that you always shoot the video of the knock at the door, telling the guy, and most of these guys may know, but this is always awesome. Joe Thomas, Darrelle Revis, Zach Thomas, DeMarcus Ware, Rondé Barber, Joe Klecko, Chuck Howley, about to get that moment. Wow. And then about the awards, did they get them right? Patrick Mahomes, MVP, you all agree with that, but the others had some debate. Brian Daboll, Coy, Sauce Gardner, D-Roy, Garrett Wilson, O-Roy, Geno Smith, C-Poy, Nick Bosa, D-Poy, Justin Jefferson, O-Poy. Courtney, did they get him right?
Yes, they did, and anybody who said that Geno Smith didn't come back from anything to win Comeback Player of the Year award doesn't understand the significance of having a breakout season as a quarterback at 32 years old.
Okay.
His career was effectively over before this season. He had started 5 games in the last 6 seasons, and then this season he leads the NFL in completion percentage, nearly 70%, leads the NFC in touchdown passes, and oh, by the way, gets the Seahawks into the playoffs.
Okay.
You can absolutely call that a
So
comeback.
that's usually it goes to somebody coming back from injury. And Brian Robinson was
criteria
shot
on this award,
in the
though.
summer and
There's
came
no,
back
like,
to play.
rules
Okay, yeah,
for
I'm with you. Harry Lyles Jr.?
Tony, I'll tell you what Geno Smith came back from. He came back from being drafted into terrible circumstances. That's a heck of a comeback.
Okay.
If there was one that I had to change, though, I am cool with all these, but if there was one I had to change, I think I would give Coach of the Year to Doug Peterson, just because he came into a situation where Urban Meyer didn't even get to the end of the job because he did almost everything in his power to ruin the Jaguars. So that's the only one that I would change.
Frank Isola.
Yeah, and every year, in every sport, there's always about 10 coaches that you could say is the coach of the year. But come on, could we give the Jets a little love here with what happened yesterday? Even Geno Smith winning the award. You have Joe Klecko getting into the Hall of Fame, Darrelle Revis. The Jets don't have many nights like this. Now go out and get Aaron Rodgers. We'll make it a great offseason.
Well, I mean, right. How many times do you get the rookies of the year on both sides of the field? Don't give them credit for Geno Smith, though. Geno Smith gets his own credit.
He wouldn't be coming back from something.
The Jets
He's coming back.
have nothing. Go ahead, George Sedano.
Tony, I would also add that they could have had another player win Offensive Rookie of the Year had he not gotten hurt in Breece Hall. He was an incredible player for them. The Jets' future is certainly bright, and they are a quarterback away from being one of these teams that will have to be reckoned with in the
All
AFC,
right, so your takeaway is the Jets are on the clock here. Okay, an interesting take. We've heard that before. Whether it's ever panned out, not exactly. We'll move on. Buy or sell to Anthony Davis. His explanation on why some thought he didn't celebrate LeBron's record.
Upset about the game. I mean, we lose to the Oklahoma City Thunder, a game we needed, and I was pissed off that we were losing. It's that simple. I mean, nothing had to do with Bron. He knows that. Everybody else outside looking in, that's their opinion.
George, buy or sell that?
Tony, I'm selling it only because I do believe that maybe it's part of the reason, but I don't think it's the real reason. I think the toxic nature of that team, clearly there were a lot of issues with Russell Westbrook, particularly in that game. If you recall, the officials were trying to get him to get out to the bench when he was being subbed out. He didn't like being subbed out. There was an argument with him and the officials and his coaching staff, which bled into the halftime. I feel like Anthony Davis was just over all of that.
Gordy Cronin.
They were losing before LeBron hit that record-setting shot, and they couldn't close out the number 12 team in the Western Conference. I don't know who half the players were playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder the other night. That's how bad the Lakers got owned, and I can understand Anthony Davis's frustrations with that. He's also coming back from a long injury absence, trying to get himself back into shape. Looked like he was dealing with something minor physically the other night. I think he just got caught at a bad moment, but I also don't buy that he didn't know that that was the record-setting shot.
Ira Lyles.
Yeah, I don't buy that he wasn't aware, but I do buy that he was frustrated because I think most of us saw the clip of LeBron mic'd up saying, "Hey man, I love you," and he said, "I know," to Anthony Davis, which indicated that he knew that he was frustrated about something. So to me, yes, I do buy that he was frustrated. I don't know if he told us everything though.
This is why people don't like the media. We want the players to care about the games, to care about winning. We got a guy telling you, yeah, heaven forbid, I was worried about the game, and now we're knocking the guy. By the way, LeBron had a party after the game, true story. He showed up with two goats, and I'm not talking about Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. He showed up at the party with two four-legged animals, two goats. How little bizarre is that? True story.
George Sedano, Fred Gaisola. Enjoy the game. Cronin, Lyles, you got some showdown work to do. 2 minutes.
Limited.